Hey guys, Coach Tommy here from the Southington YMCA Sports Performance Center. Today we're going to go over my favorite exercise for lower body training, split squats. We love this exercise because there's a ton of variations we can do and we can pretty much customize it to whoever is in front of us. I know that we used to use a lot more of the bigger lifts like deadlifts and squats because they got us pretty strong and they showed us some carryover onto the field, but what we're finding is that they also come at a pretty big cost on the back end. So one of the things that happens is as I load a bilateral heavy lift like a back squat or a front squat or a deadlift or a trap bar deadlift, it reduces my ability to turn. Right? Which in some cases might be really beneficial. The other thing too is the more we put load on there, the higher propulsive force or basically amount of port pressure we can push into the ground will go up, which means we might get faster, we might be able to jump higher, but at the same time it starts to stiffen up everything to a point where maybe we don't have the ability to rotate as well as we could. And as we look at things that are demonstrated in athletics, that could be a really important part. So it's not that they're a bad choice, but they do come at a cost at some point. And the other part too is, what about something like a split squat that might give us the best of both worlds and maybe not have as much as a cost on the back end? So over the years, we have definitely switched our lower body training more towards split squat variations than heavier bilateral lifts like deadlifts or squats, and had a ton of success. And the thing too is, like, you might be like, well, you know, what if you may not be able to ever load as heavy? We've got some athletes that are holding roughly 80-pound dumbbells, if not more, and doing split squat and lunges and things like that, whereas, yeah, they could deadlift around 300 pounds. The only thing, though, is it comes at a cost, whereas still being able to load the single leg lifts, we don't really see the detrimental effects later. So one of the things we're going to go over today is just all the variations we can use and also how it might benefit certain athletes. So the first thing is, like, well, what is a split squat? A split squat is a static up and down motion in a split stance. So basically what that looks like is that. All right? And what we're really looking for is, do I keep my torso vertical, and can I see a transition of my knee moving a little bit forward and then my back knee dropping straight down? So as we're in this position, we want to see everything kind of move as a unit and then come right back up. And what we're going to feel is both legs working simultaneously. What it does really well is allows for me to actually manipulate my pelvis in a way, and my ribs, that allow me to maybe to give me something I need or lack, and at the same time maybe bias me away from something that is already too taxed or causes pain. All right? So a perfect example of that is if I have someone that needs to engage this right hip, all right, more of when I say engage, maybe they actually need to push pressure backwards and expand on that posterior side, I can have them turn this left hip a little towards that knee as they go down. And what they'll feel is a stretch kind of in this back part of their glute and maybe some inner thigh recruitment. And what you just did was you're allowing the body to turn into a space that it might need to acquire in order to get the rest of this stuff to work properly. All right, it also might give us an opportunity to find a little bit more force into the ground on that right side. So if I have an athlete that comes in and they're like, Coach, my right leg, it's just like, I can't find it. It just doesn't feel like I can push into the floor, especially when I'm doing like my single leg hops. We may say, all right, well, in your split squat, as you're going down, just kind of turn a little bit towards that leg and come up. And they're like, oh yeah, I can feel it working. And then they go do their split squat or their jump, and they're like, oh, it feels like I can actually go straight up now, and I'm not kind of trying to find where I am in space all the time. So it becomes a very versatile tool that then we can also load. So we have a bunch of options. We have our regular split squat. If I have someone that wants maybe a little bit more of an unloaded front leg or an earlier propulsive foot, which we may talk about in a later video, I may give them a front foot elevated. All right, and what we're looking at here is the knee starts a little bit behind the ankle, and then I come down, I hit that same position, and then I come back up. It unloads the front leg, so if I need to recapture range of motion, or if I want to just train how to get them into that earlier propulsive stage of the gait cycle, that might be a great option. All right? If I have someone that needs maybe a later propulsive foot or an even higher internal force to the ground, maybe I give them a rear foot elevated split squat. All right, so same idea, and I'm just going to drop down and come up. All right, and what now I'm doing is I'm pushing more weight into the front leg and forcing them to really utilize all of that torque going down into that front leg to then drive them back up. All right, and we can, again, bias these in different ways. Maybe if I need them to load this front leg a little bit more as they go through these early stages, I give them a weight in their left hand and turn a little bit and then come up. Or maybe I give them a weight in the right hand and it turns them away from that leg as they come up and down. And we can use that in all of our variations. The other thing too is it still allows me to manipulate my pelvis because both feet are still in contact with something. As soon as I pick one leg up, my pelvis is going to kind of lock in one place, which means my sacrum and the iliums don't turn as much, if at all. So I can still give myself a lot of variability and a lot of room to recapture or gain movement that might be necessary based on my biases and my own structural development. So we have, like right there, we already have 3 variations with probably another 3 variations all within that. So it's like 9 different exercises. And then let's talk about lunging. Right? Lunging is just the dynamic split squat. So in a forward lunge, I'm just going to step out, and now I find that same position and then come back. All right? So now we can add this dynamic movement of a different type of deceleration and acceleration. I can go forward, which we just saw. I can go backwards, right? I can go front foot elevated reverse lunge. I can go back foot elevated forward lunge. Right? And all of these things start to play into different types of ways to load or increase intensity or even take intensity away. And then there's also the variations of a lateral position, which we've seen, we call this a lateral slide or a lateral split squat, and then a lateral lunge would be coming out. And now we can even incorporate some of this frontal plane motion into all of our training. So when we look at what we're trying to accomplish, we have a tool that we can almost slide into any basically situation and get an outcome that we desire, right? Whereas, man, we really don't have like a back squat, we really have like a front squat, we only have like a standard conventional deadlift with a bar, we can use a trap bar deadlift, we might be able to go sumo, but that's pretty much the extent of it. You can work on tempo and different stuff like that, but we really are limited to the options we have, and especially if we have someone that maybe doesn't respond well to the heavy bilateral loading, or they have a back issue, or any type of other kind of constraint, they don't allow a ton of variability for us to actually maneuver within. So this is why our testing is always done on split squats. This is why our first exercise that we give athletes in their typical heavy loading programming is always a split squat. And then as they get strong enough in that, we sometimes transition them maybe to a trap bar deadlift or maybe a front squat, depending. And what's really good is it always carries over into that stuff. They look really good the first time they ever try trap bar deadlift or front squat, mainly because their legs are very strong and they've been able to figure out how to actually incorporate this lower body training without sacrificing sometimes the upper body mechanics, all right? And that's the other part too, is we're always trying to figure out how do we get kids to move and athletes to move along this spectrum the safest, but also the fastest. So if you're ever thinking what might be a good exercise to add into your routine, or what might be something that can help you get out of pain and maybe into more athletic stances, the split squat is always going to be probably our first choice. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and have a great day.